What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mike Dawes Has a Podcast. My name's Mike Dawes, and I do, in fact, have a podcast. This show is all about guitar, guitarists, and the music industry. Joining me on this journey are some friends who I've met on the road over the years, and I'm honoured to share some conversations with guests I'll be meeting for the first time. Let's dive right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, the GOAT himself, the greatest of all time, Mr. Tommy Emmanuel, the GOAT is joining for the, I don't know if you know this, the season finale of this new little podcast here. So thank you so much for joining us, sir. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm excellent. I'm in good shape, and I've been playing my guitar a lot. And I haven't been writing anything new for a good 6 months, but it's just how life is at the moment. I don't feel inspired to write, but I feel inspired to play. And I've been listening to the Beatles a lot, just like every day, feeding the beast inside me with Beatles music, and hoping that something rubs off.
Well, man, that's good to hear. Feeding the soul, and I must admit, it's kind of strangely heartwarming to hear you say that you haven't been inspired to write. Many of us guitar players sort of, look to Tommy Emmanuel and say, well, if Tommy Emmanuel's not inspired to write, then maybe I shouldn't feel too guilty for not writing myself. But the sentiment is shared. It's a strange time, isn't it, for creativity and that side of things.
You'd be lying if you said that you were inspired all the time. You'd be lying if you said you wanted to write a song every day. Blah, blah. That's bullshit. You write when you feel like writing and when you've got a good idea and you're excited about it. Other than that, you're going to sit around noodling, making up stuff that is completely forgettable.
Man, that's it. That's it, and I'm so happy you just said that right off the bat. There's this crazy pressure. There's this crazy pressure now, and especially I feel during the pandemic, when we're obviously all cooped up and we're not on the road and stuff like that. I've suddenly found myself surrounded by a wave of this is the internet and guitar now, and everyone's uploading their new song every single day. And if you're not, you're slow. And I sort of feel like, well, I don't want to write anything. Don't make me,
Exactly. And it's the same thing with practice. We all know that practice is what we need, but we don't always feel like it. I pick up the guitar some days and I'm all excited, and I play some of my tunes. And then there are other days where I pick up the guitar and I go through the tunes, and then, for 30 minutes, and I've had enough.
And the calluses are still in shape, though. You're playing enough to keep the.
And there are some days where I play a lot, and I swap guitars. I play my Maton, and then I pick up my pre-war, which is like a Maton, and it's a bit harder to play. So I work on that, And I've done some recordings. I have an EP out at the moment, which is a version of John Lennon's Imagine, which I love. And it has two of my original songs on there. I've recorded an EP, 4 songs, with Trey Hensley and Rob Ikes. And Richard Smith and I, a couple of weeks ago, did 4 songs. And it's going to be a nice surprise for people, because it's not a bunch of pyrotechnics. It's one song written by Chet Atkins, 2 songs written by Jerry Reed, and the 4th song is a song from an early Chet album, which is a ballad. And we wanted to do like a tribute to our heroes, but to showcase their songwriting. And so it turned out nice. I used my pre-war 0028 to get that real traditional acoustic sound, and Richard used a nylon string, so we had steel and nylon. And we love that music. It's in our blood, that music. And so, I've been doing those kind of things. I've also been playing on tracks for other people, and just every now and again things come up. I haven't been busy every day. I've been half busy, half kind of doing reading a book and writing letters and stuff like that, doing things that I wouldn't normally get a chance to do.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Speaking of the Beatles stuff that you were saying earlier, talking about that Imagine recording that came out as part of the EP, when I heard that, I was saying to myself, of course, Tommy's absolutely crushed it with Imagine, because in my mind there are some songs that I would be absolutely terrified to touch.
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine, I would never try and do something like, say, I don't know, Cohen Hallelujah or something like that. There are these kind of sacred pieces, and of course Tommy does Imagine and absolutely crushes it, and you can hear that, and you can hear that soul, and you can hear that the fact that it's sort of part of your being,
Yeah. Well, songs like that, songs like Imagine, they're treasures in our lives, and they're loved. The song is loved by everybody around the world, and rightly so. There hasn't been a song more important to peace than that song. And so I treat it with a great deal of respect and love, and try to play it with all my heart, And
it certainly comes across, man, and it's really interesting to hear you're working with Richard again, like putting that out. I'm really looking forward to hearing that. I mean, that was something that really talking about playing the non-pyrotechnic-y stuff, right? Because when I first discovered Tommy Emmanuel here, it was, I believe, I was at a band practice when I was at school, and this website called YouTube was just invented, and I think it was a clip going around of, I think it was Guitar Boogie, and what on earth is this? What is going on here? And then you very graciously allowed me to come and open for you on a few tours over the past couple of years.
Oh, it's been great. Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, I hope we can do it again when the world fixes itself. Yeah,
we will.
But the watching from the side of the stage and seeing the Tommy Emmanuel experience as a set, as a show, and I've conveyed this to a few people. I was talking about this with Andy McKee on another episode of this. It's those songs that really, really touch people. That they work so well at these shows, and those are the songs that people seem to remember. They sort of, nowadays we live in this kind of social media, everything has to grab your attention in the first 5 seconds landscape. But you know what? They might come to look at the pyrotechnics, but then they leave having their world changed by the songs that move the performer and ultimately move them. So it's really, really exciting to hear you're doing a lot of that and bringing that to the future shows as well. It'd be really awesome to see.
Well, thank God for good songs. I'm grateful for that. I spent so many years just hosing the hell out of people.
I remember you said that, hose them down.
Yeah, coming out on stage and hosing the shit out of people for 2 hours, when I was trying to make my way up the ladder and get the right agent's attention and get the right promoter's attention and draw the right amount of people and all that stuff. It really is a case of I had to go all out. So my early shows, where everything was fast and loud and big and just like flat out. And it got people's attention. And then slowly my ballads started to infiltrate the show, and I started to be more relaxed. And I knew when I'd done the business and I'm drawing 1,000 people or whatever, once I got there, I knew I was free to do whatever I really felt that I wanted to play. And so, it's not a matter of pleasing everybody, because, trying to please everybody is a formula for failure, right? Because everybody has a different idea of what they like and what they can relate to. And I remember one time I fell into the trap of reading my forum every day.
You read the comments, Tommy.
And answering people and all that sort of stuff. And I remember playing a show in Montreal, and a guy, I hosed the hell out of him, and it was an amazing night. And the next day on my forum was a guy saying, I wish Tommy would slow down a little. He doesn't need to play all those fast songs and blah, blah, blah. So I remembered that. And when I came back to Montreal the following year, the show was sold out and I was all excited, but I remembered, this guy said, I should slow down. So I started the show with a ballad, and I played a lot more slow songs in the show, and I was much more relaxed and everything. And I thought the show went well. And the next day, where the same guy on the forum says, I don't know what's wrong with Tommy, but he just doesn't have the energy he used to have.
Amazing.
And so there it is.
That's the internet. The internet in a nutshell, right there.
Yeah. And I fell for it all those years ago. Mind you, that was 15 years ago. But it just goes to show you, I've got to please me first, there's no greater feeling, as you well know, there's no greater feeling than playing your own song.
Yeah.
There's no way to describe how wonderful it is when you play your song and people like it and they want to hear it. It's an incredible feeling. Yeah. And so, I look forward to that every night when I walk out there. And I get excited about, what am I going to start with,
Well, that's something that I noticed in that, some people will be able to go and see you play at a show. And obviously, if you're listening and you haven't seen the Tommy show, then you're insane. And when the world comes back to normal, you absolutely should be the first thing you do. But seeing multiple shows as part of a tour, I was able to kind of see that in action, because I was really surprised at how much of your set changes from night to night. I hadn't really toured with an artist that would impulsively change the show as much as you. I work a lot with Justin from the Moody Blues, and because we have somewhat of a production, those kind of shows have to be on rails to an extent.
Exactly.
It's not like Prince, where he'll just call out, actually we're going to do this, and all the musicians panic and they have to adapt. It's a bit more on rails. But obviously, as a solo performer and someone is kind of with such a discography, you're able to do that. I'm just amazed that you can keep it all in your fingers, all of these tunes.
Well, I have to, and that's why sometimes at soundcheck, I'll play tunes that I haven't played in a while, just to go over them, and some of them definitely need a little touching up, and so I practice them at the sound check or in my dressing room before the show, so that I can throw that song into the show if I want to.
Yeah.
But I have a reasonable sized repertoire of different genres of music and things, and I build in a lot of improvisation. When I go into tunes like Deep River Blues and stuff, I improvise a lot, and that allows me to fly my kite, and really get out there and push myself in front of the audience, and it's fun.
Yeah, and as you said to me, I think on the first show that I did with you, it was over in Pennsylvania, I believe. It was in the States. I think one of the first things you said was, if you want a big crowd, you've got to have a big sound.
Yeah,
that was your. Right. You love your rhyming little tidbits, Tommy. You got so many of them.
Professor Tidbit.
Professor Tidbit, exactly.
Yeah, if you want a big crowd, make a big sound.
And then you go on stage and see your world of monitors and epicness. And we've got to give a shout out to Steve.
Steve, yeah.
Yeah, your sound man of how many years? How many years have you been working
he's
together?
Been with me since 2010, so 11 years.
Wow. How did you guys meet? Because there's not many sort of solo acoustic performers in the immediate realm of instrumental picking / finger picking with their own kind of crew, and Steve and Zach.
And Zach on lights is amazing, and basically, I spent many years traveling around without a sound man. And some nights it was a nightmare, a bit, because some sound guys who have no idea what they're doing can't leave things alone. And they don't realize that the sound coming out the PA is my world. And I hear anything and everything they're doing. If they touch it, then I tell them, don't touch it, otherwise I will have to kill you, stuff like that. So I had a routine where I did all my own effects. I had a preamp, which was a BBE parametric kind of thing. And I had Elisis MIDI verb too, the old 80s reverbs with delay and stuff like that. And I did all my own effects. And I would say to the sound man, once we agree on the sound, do not touch it. I want to see you sitting like this, with your arms crossed.
Yeah, it is a peril, isn't it? The sound man who thinks, oh, one acoustic guitar, no problem. Don't worry about it. It'll be a treat. Nothing to worry about. And then or the worst, you see them just on Facebook the whole time, or something like that.
They drive you crazy. But anyway, so I'm after the world's best and biggest acoustic guitar sound. That's all.
That's all.
So that's all. So that's it. That's it. I'm looking for the biggest, most with every frequency known to man for your ear. That's what I'm looking for. And I want to be able to play from a whisper to a roar, and it's got to be as big as a band. So they're all the things. Steve knows how to get my sound so it's got everything, and that's a great investment, and the moment that I was making enough money to have one more person with me, I got a sound man to travel with me. So I had to pay his wage, his airfare, a per diem, hotels, all that sort of stuff, right? So that was my first investment. And then when I was at another level, then I started bringing a lighting guy.
Yeah, and Zach's amazing as well.
Zach is incredible. Yeah.
Talking about how you would change up the show, something that I really admired about watching your sets was, you would change the set list, and Zach just knows all the cues to however many songs you have going out there, and he's thinking, oh, he's playing this one tonight, okay, and then the lights will be synced up musically, and there's these wonderful moments in the show where you bring that visual element, and you're taking the audience up and up and up and up and up, and when there's a drop at the end of the song, or a 4 and stop or something, all the lights off, totally on cue, roar of applause, it does bring that extra layer, and it's really cool to see that. And you have an amp on stage as well. What do you not I haven't seen many acoustic players out there who have their own sort of amp as their own monitor. Is that what are you using right now?
I'm using Udo Rosner's amp called DiCapo, which is very similar to the AER Compact 60 that I used to use. I still have some AER amps because they were Udo's amps as well. But Udo's outdone himself with this new amp. It's got every frequency. It's big. It's warm. It's just, and it's transparent at the same time. And I can crank it if I want. It's like I think it's 70...
And you do crank it, because I remember being at a sound check and thinking, oh, is Tommy sounds about done? It's like, oh no, we haven't turned the PA on yet.
That's right.
It's just the amp.
Yeah, it's just the amp. It's big, and I like to feel like I'm inside the sound, and I want the audience to feel like their head is inside my guitar, And that's it. So I use the amp, but I don't face it at the audience. I face it back behind me, and Steve takes a signal from the amp. So I have direct and amp, 2 signals, and Steve uses both signals, because a direct signal will give you certain frequencies, and then the amp will give you all the other frequencies.
Kind of warms it up.
Yeah, and you mix the two together. The amp has a beautiful top end as well. The direct signal has punch in the mid-range and low mids. And so it's a combination of everything, it's like warm, but then powerful. It's got enough mid-range to poke the melody through reverb and all that sort of stuff, And
I also notice... touring a lot in the fingerstyle guitar kind of microcosm. There's a lot of people playing guitars made by, men in sheds, and there's not a lot of, access to electronics. But on your Matons, you have access to a bit of an EQ on the top. And I'd never seen anyone before, tweak as they go so much to suit certain passages. I would see you playing, and then quickly you're reaching. Maybe you're dialing back the treble on the guitar itself quickly. That was really, really interesting to see. I presume that's just as you're going, how dynamic you're playing, the passages you're playing, and being really responsive to that. It's really nice to see someone who knows sound so much. And I think it's really interesting for people listening as well to know that that's a thing that you do.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and it's all about serving the song. Like when I play a tune like Lewis and Clark, for instance, I'm playing just with the flesh of my hands, right? There's no pick, there's no nail. So in order for me to get the right balance of getting the melody to really speak with a long reverb on it, and then getting the backing to just bubble away. So I spike the mid-range and I back the bass down a tiny bit. And then all of a sudden, it's got this like total flat response. And when I pop the melody out, it pokes out, but it's just within what I'm doing.
Yeah.
When I play Somewhere Over the Rainbow, I spike the mids right up and I turn the microphone almost off. And then I'm able to get all the clarity through a big, a big reverb. They all come poking through.
Yeah, those little harmonic arpeggio things that you do.
You need more reverb than you think to make in a PA, because you're playing gently, and then you got all the reverbs, you got all the harmonics against the open notes to come out.
Yeah.
And so you do that with all that mid-range, and it just sits there like that. It's so beautiful.
And you're making me so nostalgic for the sound of acoustic guitar in a theatre.
Yeah,
that big thing. And I think it was you that said reverb. Reverb equals talent. More talent, please, on the monitors.
that was Chet Atkins who used to say. Yeah, he used to say, Hey, Tommy, you want a little talent on that? In other words, do you want some reverb?
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, we must touch on Chet Atkins as well. But as we were talking about some of the gear stuff, is this stuff that you're talking about as part of the True Fire thing you've been doing?
Yeah, I started a subscriber channel where I called Up Close and Personal, and I called it that because it's not just songs. I talk about a lot of things like arrangements, songwriting, how to change strings, how to tune up, how to work with a metronome, a lot of those kind of things. And then there's a lot of songs on there that I've written, that I play, and then I break down and teach each one. So people can subscribe to that channel, and there's always new stuff being loaded onto it. So it's an ongoing thing. I started that early last year after I came off the road.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of songs on there.
Hundreds of, Jesus.
There's a lot of...
It's a crazy time, isn't it? Because, people like yourself, we're all off the road right now. And so are so many people, guitar players from all over the world, with such an appetite to learn.
Yeah.
And these services like True Fire and Patreon and things like that are so cool. I've been Brian's actually been on at me for a while now to start a True Fire thing. I've just got to start filming the clips for it, But it sounds like such a good thing. And I know Andy McKee, who I spoke to a few weeks ago, is doing the same thing. And how fans can kind of almost interact, with a bit of a back and forth as well.
Right. The first Saturday of every month, I do a virtual workshop.
Oh, cool.
And people log on, and they're the people who are subscribing to my channel. And we had about 40 people the other day, and there was a lot of questions flying around, and the hour went like that.
Yeah.
But it was great fun, and they're ways of a little income trickling in, and some interaction with fans and with players, and to give something back to the folks,
Yeah, it's sort of it's nice to have the energy come back once you put it out there with the music. It's not, with the audiences, you obviously get that energy coming back to you.
Yeah.
It feels like playing tennis rather than playing squash. Actual human interaction. I had every Sunday I've been doing 3 sort of one-to-one Zoom kind of lessons with fans. So I keep it pretty limited, but it's super just therapeutic and quite selfish for me, to be honest. Just
Isn't
to have
that
have that interaction and people responding to the stuff you're putting out there and getting that energy back.
Yeah.
So that's
Brilliant,
awesome.
mate.
Oh, guys, check out the True Fire then. True Fire. Tommy Emmanuel, up close and personal. There we go. We can use that as a little bit, a little scroller or something. Well, talking one more thing about the gear, because since I had the privilege of starting, to be able to travel and play music, every gig, or almost every gig, I see somebody open a guitar case with a Maton, with Tommy Emmanuel's name signed onto the little bit just above the end of the fretboard. Could you share a little bit about the Maton connection and the connection with Australia and that company? Because it's a fascinating story.
Yeah. Well, I got my first Maton in 1960. That'll give you some idea of how long we've been associated. So it's a long time. But Maton are the first really popular Australian brand. There are Cole Clark out there now as well. And there are other people who make guitars in Australia, same as everywhere else. But my first good guitar was a Maton, and it was a solid body electric guitar, same as the one George Harrison was given when the Beatles came to Australia. So George had one. Oh. And anyway, my brother and I both had the same model electric guitar. And then when Ovation came out with the first acoustic guitar with a pickup in it that was half decent, I bought an Ovation, and it was a pretty ordinary instrument, but when you plugged it in, it actually worked, and it sounded a bit acoustic. Not really as good as some of the other ones that came later, but they were the first ones to have that kind of pickup system. And so I had one, and then Takamine came out with a fairly good guitar in the early 80s, a good acoustic guitar, and then they had the pickup system with the 12-volt battery in it, 9-volt battery in it, and it had a mid-range and all that sort of stuff, and it was pretty reasonable. And I had a deal with Bose at that time, so I used to play through a big Bose PA. Got a
little Bose PA just behind me there.
That's right.
Stick in the corner, yeah.
The one I had was like a rock and roll PA. It was massive, had all subs and all that stuff. And I used to play pubs and stuff. And the thing about the Takamine is it was the best sound you could get at that time. I'm talking about 83, 84, around that time. And but when you really pushed it and drove it, it square waved kind of thing. The sound made that metallic, square wavy, awful sound. And so Maton came to me and they said, you're the only guitar player with profile here in Australia, and you're playing a Japanese instrument. How come you're not playing a Maton? And I said, well, you guys build better guitars, but your electronics are useless. And it's all about how good the electronics are, I'm afraid, because you've got to plug in.
Got to play shows.
And they said, well, what can we do? And I said, well, if we had a pickup that had a microphone on it, and the batteries went in the top, and it was light, and all this stuff, and they said, well, none of that's ever been done. I said, well, why don't you do it? So I kind of forced them to start working with scientists and electronic wizards who could build this thing, and it took a while for them to come up with what they came up with, about 3 years. and we experimented with the first lot of pickups, but they were 18 volts. And they had two 9-volt batteries, so your guitar was heavy with stuff, And eventually they got it to AA batteries, everything plastic and light, and now the pickup that we enjoy has all the sweepable mid-range and all the EQ and the amount of microphone. It has everything, and it's all on board,
So all of the luthiers all around the world having to deal with weirdo guitar players' electronic requests for wacky and wonderful pickups really have you to blame for all of this.
Well, maybe, I don't know.
I'm imagining like an Apollo 11 NASA room with loads of dudes in work shirts and ties, all smoking constantly with their gadgets and machines, developing this thing. That's amazing that you're at the genesis of so many movements in the guitar world, and it's amazing that you've been with that brand of guitars for so long, and obviously it's become quite an iconic thing. And I maybe this is a demonstration of my ignorance, but it seems that you have certainly helped put that particular brand Maton on the map. I mean, I couldn't offhand think of another artist so attached to that,
John Butler is another great another guy who's been using Maton a lot, and you'll know John.
Yeah, he's amazing. Never met the guy, but he's
amazing artist. Yeah,
wonderful. Yeah,
but it's this little guitar that I have here, my main one. I mean, it's a monster. It just acoustically, it's brilliant. Stick a mic in front of it and it sounds gorgeous. Plug it in and it's a beast. It's just incredible. And I have several Matons they're all custom shop ones. They're made by the same guy. His name is Andy Allen, and he's an amazing builder, and he just keeps getting better and better. And Maton just keep getting better. So, I'm very proud of them. It doesn't matter where I go. I could be in China, Russia, the most strange place on earth, and I'll be signing Maton guitars. They're everywhere.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, it was no exaggeration to say. I mean, I was in Beijing a couple of years ago judging a guitar event there, and sit down and watch 40 different guitarists play and somehow have to judge them, which is such a strange concept. It's a bit of an American Idol concept, which I don't really relate to, but Matons, just all Matons, I swear. It's an amazing thing, really. Well, hello there, everyone. Apologies for the interruption to the podcast, but I did want to tell you about the amazing Tonewood amp, the awesome sponsors of the show. Many of you will know already that I use this thing all the time, the magical little device that sticks with magnets to the back of your acoustic guitar, vibrates the back surface of the instrument so that reverb, delay, chorus, Leslie speaker effects, and other loveliness project out of the sound hole as if by magic.
You're a wizard.
I'm a what?
You can head to MikeDawesHasAPodcast.com now to get more information about the Tonewood amp, as well as saving a tasty percentage for yourself. Let's get right back to it. So, were you playing the Maton when you played, presumably, your biggest gig ever? I say presumably because I can't really think of anything bigger than like the Olympics in Sydney.
The Olympics is definitely the biggest gig. It's like 2.75 billion people watching. Right.
Jeez, I wonder what the ASCAP was like on that.
Right. Well, and before the event, when all the stadium was full of people and there's all lights going on and 30,000 athletes in the middle and just this incredible spectacle, I turned to my brother and I said, take a photo of this in your mind because it'll never happen again for us,
It's incredible.
But I played a Maton electric guitar through a Line 6 pod. That's how I got the sound. We were playing live. My brother and I were both live. And then I had my acoustic guitar on a snare drum stand, holding it so I could lean over and play the acoustic part and then go back to the electric guitar.
It's an
so
incredible
they were
thing.
there.
I saw the clip on YouTube. This was the closing ceremony of the Sydney Olympics, which
Yeah.
for anyone listening who is younger than I don't what was it which year was the Sydney Olympics?
It was 2000.
Yeah, 2000.
So
And
21 years ago.
it's an incredible thing. I was in a bar in North Wales with our mutual friend Clive Carroll.
Oh, how wonderful.
And I think he was telling me a story of possibly doing some shows with you around that time, and saying, okay, I might be butchering the story, but so I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of, okay, I've got to break off from the tour because I've got to go back and do a few little small gigs of my own, and then he was going obviously to do a few little small shows in somewhere in England or the UK, and I think his story is, yes, Tommy said, yep, same, I've just got to go back to Australia and do this gig, and then he turns on the TV and it's the bloody Sydney Olympics.
Yeah.
Which is just outrageous, and an incredible thing. I'd definitely check it out on YouTube if anyone's listening and hasn't seen it. The Sydney Olympics closing ceremony. What was the name of the song you were playing? It's somebody else's song, wasn't it?
It's called Back on Terra Firma, and it's written by John Jorgensen. And you wouldn't believe it. I found the backing track, right? Because we played live over the top of a backing track because it's so big out there, you know. You can't. There was no room for an amp and stuff like that. That's why we used the Line 6 pods. But I was in Nashville mastering the backing track and cutting it down to 2 minutes and 46 seconds. That's the time that it had to be faded out by 2 minutes and 46. Yeah. So I got that together, and then I went to the airport and I flew Nashville to LA, LA to Sydney, right? And I get to the airport in Nashville and I'm standing in line to get on my plane, and there's a guy in front of me with long blonde hair, tall. And I thought, he looks familiar. And he turned around and it was John Jorgensen. And I said to him, John, you'll never guess what I've got here. And he said, what? I said, Back on Terra Firma, which is a song he wrote, right? We're playing it on the Olympic Games, on the closing ceremony. And he couldn't believe it. He was so thrilled. And when we got to Sydney, he sent us flowers to our hotel.
Amazing.
Which was really sweet of him.
Well,
but that was the right choice for us. It was a really dramatic instrumental.
Yeah, it comes across. It's a powerful piece and a powerful performance, and just amazing to see, you know, two brothers just loving music and playing in, you know, home country, home Olympic Games. What an experience.
It'll never happen again. And it was an amazing moment. And with all those people out there and the excitement, you know, just trying to keep calm was important.
It sounds like a pretty dumb question, but were you nervous? You know, someone who performs as much as yourself, was this just another... it sounds like a very silly thing to say, but the reason I say it is because when I talk to people who play, say, stadiums versus clubs, they don't really see a distinction in how they feel about the show. I'm just wondering if the Olympic Games and billions of people changed how your body worked in that moment, you know?
No, I was very calm and I was excited and gave it everything that I could, but I tried to play well and you know, all that stuff, you know. And Phil and I, we just kind of bounced off each other playing wise, even though we knew it was only 2 minutes and 40 seconds. We really gave it our all, you know.
Amazing experience, man. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, there's so many things that I really want to ask you as part of this. However, because this is the quote-unquote season finale of this little podcast I've set up here with the good folks at Tonewood Amp, who I believe you met. They're in charge of this whole little thing. Wonderful, wonderful people. I thought it would be nice to make this one a little bit different and a little bit special. So what I've done is I have some questions from some of my patrons
how wonderful.
and some friends. Some you know, some you don't. So I thought it might be nice to give other people an opportunity to ask you what they would want to ask you.
Oh, thank you. That'd be great, Mike.
Well, thanks to them. But first of all, one question from myself. Why do you love Starbucks so much on the road for lunch?
Well, because it's consistent. You know what you're going to get. And you're going to get a pretty decent cup of coffee.
Absolutely, so, good for the coffee and the white bread, constant white bread.
Well, I try not to eat too much processed kind of food. You know, when we eat dinner on the road, it's always good quality food, always, because you got to have vitamins and minerals and stuff. You got to get all the goodness from your food. That's the best thing, you know.
Hot meals before shows are essential.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
the lifestyle of, or the cliched touring lifestyle of junk food constantly on the road will only get you so far. Not the way to do it.
I want to eat well.
There you go. You heard it here first. If you want to play like Tommy Emmanuel, eat your vitamins, kids.
That's right.
There's a nice clip right there. Well, let's look at these little questions here. We have our friend Kirby. Kirby Jane asking, what is the current situation with your movie?
What is the what?
The current situation with your movie.
This is the third year it's been in film festivals around the world, winning awards and stuff. So we were trying to get a few important film festival awards to, before we approached someone like HBO or Netflix to distribute us and all that sort of stuff. So we were trying to get a few, brownie points with the film.
The little wreaths, logo things,
from around the world, before we approached a big company about getting the film out. But it's been doing very well, and I'm kind of waiting to see what's going to happen next. And every now and again I ask, what's going on? And they're like, oh, it's in such and such at the moment. It's in France. It's at such and such a festival. And, so it's been everywhere. I mean, it's been in like 10 different film festivals here in America.
Wow.
And
it's an all-star cast as well. On that thing. Looking forward to seeing it when it's officially released.
It's warts and all, it's full of honesty.
Absolutely. Well, it's something you're known for, man. It's just the honest expression, and it's something that I try to convey in these little episodes that I've had with a lot of musicians. It seems like a similar thing, and it's something that I think is really important to hear, especially nowadays when people are trying to, especially people starting out in music, trying to compete with a sea of sort of content. It's nice to remember that the reason we play is for that honest expression. So Kirby actually has another quick question, which is, what is the favorite concert you've attended as a punter, as a guest?
Probably Paul McCartney. The songs and his band and him, but just his performance, his singing, everything about that show was, it was total gold. It was beautiful.
What sort of year was that? I'm trying to imagine which band he had with him.
Year before last.
Oh wow! Okay, fantastic. Yeah. Well, my sister saw him. I believe it was at Hyde Park. One of those big shows they have there. There we go. It's all about the Beatles. All coming back to the Beatles. Fantastic.
It's all about good songs. That's what it's about.
Yeah. The one of my patrons here, Josh Thomason, has a question, which is, it's a bit of a two-pronged question, really, about songwriting. Okay. In an average songwriting process, how long does it take to go from an idea to a finished piece? I guess that's how long bit of a generic situation, but with variables. But how long would it take you to create your typical Tommy Emmanuel piece?
Well, let's use Fuel as an example. There's a lot in Fuel, right? There's a lot of writing in Fuel. There are a lot of different sections and everything. That took me probably 2 hours to write, and then another 2 hours of practice till I could play it. I wrote it on a train trip, so I had the idea. I started the song.
He's got the guitar, guys.
Yeah, with. I had that, and then I had that sound. So I had those chords, and I had that as my starting point. And then I started writing this song. And
what a riff.
It took about 2 hours for all the parts, for me to write all the parts and piece it together. And then I knew I kind of had it. I was just all over the place with it, technically. And then I started just playing it and playing it and playing it. So it was about 4 hours to write and perform.
Well, that's a really productive 4 hours work there, Tommy, for that tune.
It was, yeah. But then there are other songs like Lewis and Clark, where I got the main theme straight away, and I had it in 5 minutes. It just came over me. But then each time I got to where the chorus comes in, the real payoff, nothing was coming. And everything I tried, I discarded every time. No, that's not it, that's not it. And I kept at it and kept at it. And I'd play the verse again, leading into the chorus, and nothing, And this went on and on and on. And I was starting to force it. I was starting to try to force it, and it just wasn't working. So I know that you can't force music. It has to come to you and flow through you. So I put the guitar down and went to bed. Went to bed, and I got up early the next morning, and I had a different view. And I started thinking of the story of Lewis and Clark from the native people's perspective. And the voice in my head said, if you bring your love with you, we'll welcome you. That's what the voice said. And it had a melody. If you bring your love with you, da, da. And I heard that melody, and I put it in the song, and there it was. I finished the song.
That's really really fascinating for a couple of reasons, because writing instrumental music from a lyrical thing is something that I've tried a few times, and it's something that I've always tried to encourage people to do. And it's interesting that that's what happened to you as well with that. But also, I love how you took that, and then you, in that particular song, you've got the groove in the bass going along with it, and that's what makes it dance. Well,
there's constant motion with the chords, and when you have constant motion, right, and the story starts to unwind. The story starts to unfold at the start. If you bring your love with you. So forth. So there's this constant moving of chords, and then the melody seems to be just like telling the story, and it's slowly unfolding. You know what I mean?
And it's beautiful.
Yeah, and so some songs like that, I had to wait. You know, a songwriter waits patiently for something to inspire him or her. And so when I got that idea, I knew I was onto something right, you know, and all my instincts told me so. You got to trust your instincts too, you know, and also, you know, I've taken in a lot of music, so I have a high standard to try to reach because I've listened to all the greats, you know, all the great songwriters from Stevie Wonder down kind of thing, you know, and they've set a high bar. And so if it's not right, all my instincts are going to tell me straight away. So
When you strike gold, you know it.
yeah,
Amazing,
exactly.
man. Amazing. And I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, like I said at the beginning of this chat, you know, the song has to come to you, and there's a certain amount of sort of waiting on that inspiration and on that spark.
Exactly.
We've actually got a question here from Robert Chen, who's, I think, asking a similar thing but more on the technical end. And his question is, what advice would you give for someone who feels that they've stopped improving, that they've plateaued?
Then it's time for something to influence you. Start listening to something maybe that you haven't listened to shake up your instincts and your enthusiasm. You definitely need to take in some different influences. I remember when I was writing, I went through a period like for 6 weeks where I was just a songwriter, right? And I'd get up in the morning and I'd put on Sinatra live at the Sands, and then I'd put on Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then I'd put on Bonnie Raitt, and then I'd put on Mozart. And I bombarded myself with lots of kind of great music of all genres, just to listen and take it in. And I could draw on it later in the day when I was writing a piece or whatever, you know. I remember when I wrote a song called Who Dares Wins, I had been listening to Phil Collins and where he used the Roland drum machine in some of those 80s, late 80s songs. Yeah, the Roland drum machine playing this groove. And so I wrote this song with a
Sort of in the air tonight kind of thing.
That kind of thing. And think twice. It's another day for you and me in paradise. Oh,
Banger.
Yeah, all that stuff. You know,
That was the first thing I ever did on a musical instrument in my life, was as a baby finding my mum's keyboard and hitting all the white keys. Bing, 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 bing. Connected by Phil Collins. Sorry, totally interrupted you there. I just
no, it's
the memory just came.
Yeah, how wonderful. Yeah. So, you know, it's part of being a human being that you get stuck in a rut, or you know, all of us get stuck in ruts, and sometimes we get writer's block, sometimes we get creative block, and you just have to get through it. You know, it's not the end of the world. It's going to pass. This too shall pass.
As opposed to Gandalf, who famously said, "None shall pass."
Okay.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, and we've got all the time in the world right now to listen and absorb new influences. Myself, I've been fooling around with songs from artists I used to listen to back when I was at school, and just hadn't had an opportunity to go back and listen to that stuff, and it's sparked a different kind of creative thing there. Definitely down the ballad route as well. A question here from Jana in Germany. Is there a musician you haven't played with who you'd love to be on the stage with?
Oh, well.
In particular? It's a tough question, isn't it?
I'd love to do something with Lady Gaga. She's incredible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I love working with singers. So, you know, do something with somebody like Gaga would be the ultimate.
That's awesome. She's incredible.
To be her accompanist for a song, that would be the greatest.
Well, Lady Gaga, if you're listening, Tommy Emmanuel would like a chat.
Get it together.
Yeah. What are you waiting for, Lady Gaga? Stephanie, I think her name is, or something. Well, she did that thing with Metallica, didn't she? There was was it the Grammys or some kind of award show where she joined Metallica, and that was a collaboration for the ages. So maybe she can step it up and play with Tommy. That would be pretty wild. There you go, Yana. Maybe an unexpected answer to that question. Lady Gaga.
Yeah, there you go.
We have just a little attempt to say a word here in another language now. This question is from your, forgive me, Sketterdreng.
My Sketterdreng. Yeah, that's from Denmark.
Yes, it's our friend Casper Esman, Sketterdreng. I don't know what that means, but he trained me to say it, and
it means my little treasure.
Oh, bless. Yeah. Okay, well that's good to know.
A dreng is a boy.
Oh, okay.
My little treasure boy. That's what we call each other.
Oh, that's adorable. Well, his question is, show us your Danish skills. It's more of a statement, really, but I think you just have.
Show us your Danish skills. Okay, you ready? Der en hest. That means there is a horse.
Fantastic. The only Danish I know is fart pilot, which I believe is cruise control in a car. But there we go. We taught ourselves some bilingualisms today, Tommy. Thank you so much for that. And I hope you enjoy that, Casper, if you're listening.
Casper's writing great tunes and playing so well. He really is. I've known him since he was a boy, and he is a Sketterdreng. He is a real treasure to me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure he'd love to hear that, Tommy. That's awesome. Well, that's fantastic, man. And one more little question here. I've got a list because I mentioned that I was going to be chatting to you, and obviously there was a lot of people that wanted to get their questions in here. But let's go with Lars here. What happens to your guitars when you retire them from the road? Do they exist in some kind of magical realm?
They exist in some magical realm. No. My original Maton guitar from my album Only, which is the prototype from the 90s, that guitar is in a guitar museum in Australia.
Very cool.
Along with my 66 Telly, my Fender Telly. That I used all my life. Those two guitars are on display in that museum.
Where in Australia is this?
It's in Tamworth, which is the country music capital of Australia. It's like the Nashville of Australia. And my mouse, my Maton that I had before this was called the Yellow Mouse. And that guitar is in Croatia with a young man named Frano Zivkovic.
Oh, he joined. He was at one of the concerts that I did with you, that I opened for in.
That's right. I gave him my 808.
Wow.
That I had all those years. It's a great guitar. I gave it to him because he deserved it. And the one that's really marked up, that has no finish left on it, whatever, that one is in the Musicians Hall of Fame here in Nashville.
Wow.
Sitting next to George Harrison's guitar.
Wow, that's incredible, man. What a story, and what a legacy, you know. I mean, the power that your music's had on the musical world and the guitar world. I mean, I would say guitar world first, but just the broader musical world is really phenomenal, and the impact you've had on so many people. We all thank you sincerely, and it's a real pleasure to have you on as this sort of season finale, episode 10. That's a nice way to end a season, isn't it, of these little podcasts. And well, Tommy, thank you so much for taking the time, man. It's nice to see you again. It's nice Nice
so
to see
good
you
to
doing
see
well
you,
in
Mike.
Nashville. And when all this is over, we'll do something somewhere sometime, you know?
I know we will. Well, thanks for the unexpected pleasure of doing this podcast because, I mean, apart from the fact that I get to hang with you, but it's great to talk about so many different things and have time to do that, you know?
Well, it reminds us of our car journeys on the Autobahn.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can do that again soon, man. Well, lots of love.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time. I'm going to go and stop the recording right here. Thank you so much to everyone listening to this whole season of Mike Dawes Has a Podcast, because I couldn't think of a better name. And thank you to the lovely people at Tonewood Amp for putting this whole thing together. Lots of love to them. We love them. And I will see you next season. And do stay in touch with Tommy on his True-Fi course and the new EP, Imagine, which also features two original songs that are re-recordings, aren't they? They're not just remasters, re-recordings. Thank you so much, Tommy Emmanuel, the GOAT himself. Take care. Bye-bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out this week's episode of the podcast. For more information about this week's guest, head to the link in the description, where you will also find more information about the Tonewood amp, as well as that cheeky little discount you can get as well. Lots of love. See you next time.